Hi, I'm Rebecca Balcarcel. Let's talk about John Donne and his sonnet, Death Be Not Proud. Now, if you had wandered around London in 1861 and walked into St. Paul's Cathedral, where you can still visit today, you would have heard John Donne giving a sermon if it was Sunday morning. And what a treat that would be, because he was famous for imaginative, insightful sermons that also were scholarly and educated. So he was a great person to hear and also a great person to read, because not only was he, famous for preaching, but also writing, and not just poems, but also essays. He was just one of the great deep thinkers of his day. And he was also one of the metaphysical poets, they were called, a group of a few poets who did explore spiritual questions in their work. And I'll add that he was a Catholic. That is, he was born into a Catholic family. And this meant he was a persecuted minority in England because the Church of England is Anglican. So he struggled with his faith all his life, and he examined himself carefully. He examined his faith carefully, the differences between Protestant and Catholic carefully, because this wasn't just a hypothetical, like theoretical sort of thing. It meant his livelihood. For example, he went to Oxford and he went to Cambridge, and he studied and did very well, but only Anglicans could graduate, and he was Catholic, so he couldn't graduate, couldn't get his degree. So it really mattered whether you were Protestant or Catholic at this point in England. Later in his life, he did come over to Anglicanism, and that way he was able to get jobs and be appointed as a leader in a church and have a more financially stable life. So that was good. However, he also suffered from illness quite a bit, and he was at death's door more than once. And this poem maybe was written just after such an illness or even during such an illness. And so I'm hoping all of these biographical details will help you understand the poem, Death Be Not Proud. Let's read the first quatrain, the first 4 lines. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow die not. Poor Death, nor yet canst thou kill me. All right, so he's talking right to Death. He's like pulling Death by the collar and saying, Death, listen to me. I have something to say to you. And what he says is, you should not be proud, Mr. Death, because look at this. Some people call you mighty and dreadful, meaning inspiring dread and fear. But you're not mighty or dreadful, because the people that you think you have succeeded killing, overthrowing them, you have not succeeded. They die not. And this is because, from his perspective, they go to an afterlife, and in that eternal life, they are not dead. So death didn't accomplish very much. He says the people you think you've overthrown actually die not. Poor Death. He actually feels sorry for Death, because Death won't even be able to kill me, the poet. All right, the next quatrain. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure. Then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and soul's delivery. Now you can hear the rhyme scheme here. We have the E sound repeated and the O sound repeated, and that's been going on from the first 4 lines too. We have sound A and then B again, and then A. So it starts out A, B, B, A. And this second set of 4 lines is also A, B, B, A. So there's some technical skill happening there. Being a sonnet, every line has 10 syllables as well. So that's another technical feat. But let's get back to what the content is saying. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Oh, okay, so rest and sleep are little pictures of death, as close to death as we can get in regular life. They're like sleep is a picture of death. It's not the real thing, but it's a hint of what death is. But from rest and sleep come a lot of pleasure. We love to have a delicious sleep and to sleep in. So if that much pleasure comes from sleep, how much more pleasure will come from death? It says, from thee much more pleasure must flow. So he's thinking, wow, death is going to be great. And soonest our best men, that means the best people die young. All too soon they're going with death, with the ego. Rest of their bones and soul's delivery. So their bones get to rest, their soul is delivered from the body, taken out of the body. So all these are good things. And you can see how Donne likes to turn things on their heads a little bit. The conventional view of death is that it's scary and bad, and so he's flipping that entirely and saying, death, you're not scary, you're not dreadful, you don't kill anybody, and on top of that, you must bring pleasure, because sleep brings pleasure, and young people who die at a young age are set free all the sooner. Their bones are resting, their souls are delivered. It's a win-win situation. And this kind of unique twist is typical of Donne and of the metaphysical poets. Moving on. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and poppy or charms can make us sleep as well, and better than thy stroke. Why swellest thou then? Okay, so he's listing some things. Let's see. He says, fate, chance, kings, and desperate men all cause death, and so death is their slave. Death doesn't get to choose who to kill. Desperate men do if they commit a crime and kill somebody. Kings do if they're going to declare war. Chance, fate, accidents, that causes death. So death has to go around appearing wherever they say to appear. Death doesn't get to have a lot of free will or say. Death is a slave. So this is another way to take power away from death. And then he says, you hang out with poison, war, and sickness. You dwell with them. It's kind of like, this is your peer group, this is your squad. What fun is that? Gee, poison, not too much fun. War, sickness, your friends are all pretty unimpressive. And then he says that poppy and charms, so drugs, flowers that bring us, that refined would give us drugs and charms can put us to sleep, make us sleep well, and even better than death, better than thy stroke. Why swellest thou then? So why, death, do you puff yourself up and think you are so powerful? Why are you proud? You shouldn't be, because poppies are better, charms are better. You hang out with people like poison and war, sickness. You're the slave of kings and chance. So you're just, why are you proud? Why are you boastful? No reason to swell up with pride. Nope. Then we get to the last two lines, which do rhyme in John Donne's time period. For us, they don't rhyme, but in his pronunciation of the day, it would have rhymed. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. Okay, so he says, after a short sleep, then we're going to be waking up in eternal life, heaven, and then there's no more death. So death, you're the one that's going to die. And that little twist, that little irony of death is the only one who's going to die, is humorous and also profound. Death, you'll die, and none of the rest of us will die. Just you. Now the rhyme that I pointed out, eternally and die, for us don't rhyme, but eternali and die would rhyme. So that's more like it was pronounced at that time. Similarly, we have in the first line, called thee, though some have called thee, mighty and dreadful. We have to put called because it was pronounced in his time period, that syllable, and also to make up the 10 syllables that every line of a sonnet needs to have. So if we say called, then we're cutting off the syllables to only 9, and we need 10. So some pronunciation has changed since the 1600s, but not so much that we don't understand the poem. I think you can see pretty clearly that he's taking death to task and scolding death and saying, "No way, you can't be proud. You got nothing." All right, well, I hope you enjoyed exploring this poem with me, and I'll see you next time.